Hey everyone, hey gamers, hey chat. Okay. After I finish my workout today, I walk back home and then I started training very heavily. It's one of those rare cases where it didn't start raining while you're walking home, which makes me feel very lucky. Oh, by the way, the sound that I'm using for background is this one. This is from Boomger. Oh no, I thought it might help with the vibe today because I finished reading this Bad Samaritan, The Guilty Secret of Rich Nation and the Threat to Global Prosperity, which had a few flaws because I guess he didn't if you're looking at what is basically a practice of neocolonialism, which is unequal exchange, but without going through imperialistic practices, it will always be lacking, I guess is the word. But as an introduction to the topic of unequal exchange, I think this one is really good. It is more about a lot of the book is focused on the microeconomic, everything that is wrong in those in the macroeconomic of neoliberal capitalism and how rich countries are using it to keep poor countries poor so they can keep extracting and exploiting those countries. Western imperialists, or rich nations in this case, has done it all the time. A lot of it is done in secret, a lot of it is done openly but with a lot of manufacturing consent. But nowadays, with Trump as the head, I made some short with where I said that Trump is basically just America going mass off, which become more and more true. I think he did he did so many corrupt things in foreign countries in just a couple of days. It's nuts. In Honduras, he did one. In Venezuela, he did one. In Argentina, he did a lot in Venezuela, not just one, but you know what I mean. And there are a few more countries where he directly intervened. America directly intervened with the government in that country, which is, I guess that's just the dystopian world we're living in right now. And speaking of dystopian world, I want to read this. The Eyes of Gaza, a Diary of Resilience by Plestia Alakat. She has moved to, I think, Australia, becoming one of the diaspora of Palestinians who managed to, I guess, get out of the hell that they're living right now. Yeah, I don't know how to describe what the diaspora of Palestinian, except for that. I think the We Are Not Number is also a book that is very important to read because those have a lot more variety in the story and in the people who wrote about their life story. But This is also a good book that I've read up until page 46 or 47, and this includes a lot of the context of her reporting during the days after 7 October especially. A lot of pictures, a lot of photos, a few poetry here and there. So I want to read some of its pages, maybe about an hour or so, and then I'll end the stream and continue reading where I left off. But let's just start. The book is opened by advanced praise from Macklemore, the rapper. Advanced praise for the eyes of Gaza. How do you get over genocide? The question Plestia asks is rhetorical, yet it lingers long after the page is turned, heavy with grief and impossible to answer. Plestia is more than a journalist. She is a witness, a storyteller, and an unrelenting seeker of truth. With a camera in one hand and a pen in the other, she has dedicated her life to ensuring the world does not look away. Through her lens, she captures not only the devastation of genocide in Gaza, but also the weight of a lifetime lived under Israeli occupation. Her writing is deeply personal, at times reading like a journal entry or a letter from a friend. She weaves hope and pain so seamlessly that it often hurts to read. Each word a testament to both resilience and loss. Plestia's ink serves as the veins of Gaza, giving life to stories that might otherwise be erased. With striking imagery and intimate detail, her reporting is more than documentation, it is resistance. Her words left me both devastated and inspired, moved by the strength found in community, the unwavering spirit of her people, and the urgent need for collective liberation. Macklemore. And then of course by Rupi Kaur, The Eyes of Gaza transformed pain into poetry, offering readers an unfiltered glimpse into the depths of loss, hope, and survival. Best-selling author of Milk and Honey. And by Susan Abul Hawa, who's one of the book I'm currently reading. Much like the diary of Anne Frank, Plestia Alakat has penned an audit of one young woman's life, written with humor, impossible optimism, faith, and sometimes despair. By Nora Erakat, Plestia Alakat became our eyes in Gaza and has forever taken a huge piece of our hearts. In this series of diary entries, she welcomes us to live through the genocide again, but this time with greater intimacy. It reveals a tender and infallible optimism that siege and systematic war have failed to cross. The Eyes of Gaza give us a glimpse of how the most noble of people not only survive a genocide, but are more resolute than ever that their future is freedom and that the future is Palestine. The raw truth of the Eyes of Gaza hurts, but what's the point of anything if we can't face the truth? Palestinians are just like us. They feel as we feel. Please read this joyful, tragic account of life in Gaza and celebrate Plestia Alakat's courage and skill and stop the killing. By Miriam Malkovich, BAFTA award-winning actor and author of This Much Is True. And this is what's the term? I forgot. Who this book is credited to. To Sedo, whose Minty I grew up with, I never thought I would relive and experience your Nakba stories myself. To Mama, who gave me my first purple diary and set me on my path. To my family, who never tired of reading my books and listening to my voice, now they're in a book. And to Gaza, the soul of our souls, all that I am and all that I will ever become. This work is for you and because of you. Only in Gaza, you sleep counting rockets rather than stars. You wake up, if you wake up, to the sounds of bombs rather than birds. Only in Gaza, you sleep not knowing if or how you'll wake up. In Gaza, you sleep in your house and you wake up under the rubble. In Gaza, you sleep with your body parts whole and you wake up missing a hand or a leg. In Gaza, you sleep beside family and friends, and the next day you are on your own. Only in Gaza, people celebrate birthdays while war echoes in the background, then welcome you into a tent with a warm hands and a cup of tea. Only in Gaza, despite the pain, people remain not just survivors, but warriors. And there's the painting of her diary that she used, the purple diary that her mom gave her when she wrote all of this. I was only 12 years old when I began writing in my first diary. It was a dark purple notebook with lined page that my mom gave me as gift, and I remember feeling excited when penning the first page, way back on 9 September 2013. I've always believed that putting pen to paper is akin to finding a good listener, that writing is a form of therapy. Back then, my entries often revolved around school. Trivial things like a classmate not playing with me during recess or studying hard but not getting the grades I wanted. They were filled with observations about my fears, reflections on my teachers, and of course, my crushes on boys. In case you're curious, 12-year-old Celestia loved One Direction, Zayn Malik was my favorite. So much so that I used to post his picture on my Facebook page to wish him a happy birthday or congratulate him on the release of a new song. I know, cringe. I remember failing for my younger neighbor and filling my diary with fantasies. Although I probably wasn't fully aware of it at the time, I wrote to understand myself better and to look back on the moments that had made me happy. I would love to read those diaries now, to get lost in the unassuming innocence of it all. My first diary coincided with a tough year for me. I studied at the American International School in Gaza, ASG, since kindergarten, so I'd had the same classmate the whole time and all the teachers were familiar. Everything was going well until 6th grade, when what can only be described as a friendship crisis erupted. I was getting good grades and some of my classmates started bullying me because of it. It didn't help that my mom was the head of the middle school. People accused me of only doing well because of her, and that made me sad. Looking back though, I believe being bullied might have been the best thing that ever happened to me, because it played a huge role in shaping the person I am today, giving me the chance to spend more time alone and develop a better relationship with myself. I learned to accept that fact that not everyone in life will like you, and that's okay. Realistically speaking, I don't like everyone in the world, and not everyone in the world will like me, and that's their problem, not mine. Or maybe it's not a problem at all. I'm grateful for the lesson I learned from a young age, but I wouldn't have survived without a powerful support system at school. Rawan Al-Surani was one of my favorite teachers growing up, a journalist as well as a teacher. She had power and influence in our community, and she knew it. I often sought career guidance from her, and her responses only fueled my admiration. She's the reason I decided at age 12 that I wanted to study journalism when I grew up. When I told her that, she was incredibly supportive and started suggesting books, sparking my interest in reading and initiating my journey into writing. It's crazy to think about it now, how the decision that I took when I was 12 years old changed my life, and is the reason this book exists. From around that time onwards, all through middle school, high school, university, and life after graduation, my diary and I were pretty much inseparable. What I didn't expect at 12 years old, when I received that first purple diary, was that future entries wouldn't contain merely trivial recollection, that they would also come to be filled with memories of living under Israeli occupation, enduring bombardments, and being in a state of near constant fear of dying or having my loved ones be killed. It was both insane and entirely predictable that as I grew up, I refused to change my mind about my ambitions. There was a part of me that wanted to study drama, so I could be a drama queen on stage, lol. But a loud and irresponsible voice in my head urged me to be practical and pursue a major that could lead to job opportunities in the Gaza Strip, once where I could inform the world about where I live, so I applied to university to study new media and journalism. Sometimes I watch Western television and I see the moral virtues seeping from privileged safe people who tell their kids to dream of whatever they want to be. But that's not how most of the world lives, works, survives. At least it isn't in Gaza. For me, pursuing journalism felt like a mission more than a career. I often think about all the children that the Israeli occupation force, IOF, have killed and who they could have grown up to be. Outstanding poets and best-selling authors who never had the chance to be alive. It saddens me to think of all the potential art that will now never see the light of day, the books that will never be read, paintings we'll never get to behold. I think of Naji al-Ali, a Palestinian politician cartoonist who is best known for drawing Handala, the image of a child who is forever 10 years old and who will not grow up until he is allowed to return to his homeland. Naji created the characters as a reflection of his own self. He was 10 years old when his family were forcibly displaced during Al-Nakba, the ethnic cleansing and forced removal of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in one sweep, in 1948. And Handala quickly became an iconic symbol for Palestinian people. It's crazy to me that we're in 2024, but we Palestinians can relate to Handala, who was first drawn in 1969, more than ever before. I sometimes wonder how different Naji al-Ali's work would have been or would be now if Palestine was free. We'll never know. He was assassinated in London in 1987 before I was even born. As for me, my journey from young idealist who dream of sharing the beauty of her homeland with the wider world to hardened journalist documenting painful atrocities and losses of life at the hands of the Israeli military started in 2019 in a cafe on the street of Gaza, sitting among friends, the heat of the sun beating down on our skin, discussing a future that we were all too naive to realize as Gazan we had little control over. It was hot, and I remember I was wearing a pink shirt paired with black pants, my hair worn casually, half up, half down. The cafe was called Gloria, right in the heart of Gaza City, and we had a beautiful seaside view. My friends and I had graduated high school a few weeks earlier, and we were talking about where we'd all like to go to study. Some wanted to stay in Gaza, while others were planning to go abroad to Turkey or France, or even the UK. Suddenly, all eyes turned to me. It was my turn to share my non-existent plan. I mentioned that I'd been accepted to universities in a handful of different countries, but none felt like quite the right fit for me. Then a classmate suggested Cyprus, where he was planning to study, and two others quickly chimed in, expressing their interest in applying as well, followed by yet another classmate. Of course, as teenagers do, when fueled by unvarnished enthusiasm, we all made a collective life decision and applied to a university in northern Cyprus that very night. Before long, each of us had received our acceptance letters. When I excitedly told my mom that I was off to study in Cyprus, her expression was hilarious, half incredulous, half amused. She didn't take me seriously. "This is your future," she said, "not just a trip with friends." To be fair, she had a point. Throughout my senior year, I had been busy applying to top universities, hunting for scholarship and taking SATs and IELTS exams. Yet despite all that, here I was, coming home after a casual hangout with my classmates and applying to a university in Cyprus on a whim. Looking back, I think the spontaneity of the decision was what made it right. Because of course, I did eventually convince my mother that I was serious, and the five of us moved to Cyprus. Crazy as it was, we secured our visa, embarked on our journey, and even found a cafe in Cyprus called Gloria, or Home Away from Home. A lot of the time, we like to think that we can control our lives. We depend on sensible routines and responsible decisions and pension plans, and we sign away our individuality in exchange for a more peaceful and seemingly more shelter-proof life. But living in Gaza, really living in any occupation zone, teaches you pretty quickly that it is impossible to make your life truly bulletproof, because someone can come along at any time and drop a bomb on you. So even though you don't think about it in this way, sometimes you just make a decision and you go with it, More because a choice has to be made than because it's something that you've talked about deeply. Life has to move on. Maybe my story makes it sound a bit like fun and games, as if it is easy to just decide to travel abroad when you're living in Gaza, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, there are 1,000 checks before you're granted a permit. If you want to leave from Erez, you have to get permission from Israel, from Rafah, from Egypt, and in both cases, you have to get permission from Hamas as well. The hardest part, however, is not knowing when or if you'll be able to return. The borders can close at any minute, which makes it risky for a student to come back and visit when they're halfway through their studies, because they could get stuck and miss out on the rest of their degree. So the minute I left Gaza, I knew that was it. It would be sometime until I saw her again. Up until this point, my life seemed to flow naturally, from the successful competition of one stage through the next. But 3 years after leaving Gaza, as I stood on the brink of graduation, I found myself wondering, what next? Should I escape reality and delay adulthood to live a little longer by doing a master's degree? Or should I apply for a job and start my career proper? Should I stay in Cyprus? Or should I go back home? My studies abroad has shown me how little people in the outside world knew about our completely tiny part of Palestine. I knew I wanted to show the world the beauty of Gaza, a place often unheard of and overlooked, or dismissed as a conflict zone and nothing more. I think I always knew deep down that this was the right path, so I decided to pursue what I had always dreamed of, returning home to put my media and journalism degree to use. I packed up 3 years of my life in Cyprus and set off, determined to show the world Gaza through my eyes. I couldn't have anticipated the version of Gaza that would be. I went home, and the first role I took was an editor for a local news agency. I think I lasted less than 3 weeks before realizing that it wasn't what I wanted to wake up to and do every day, sitting in an office for 8 hours, working from behind a screen, not for me. Afterwards, I approached Press House Palestine, an independent non-profit media institution which promotes freedom of opinion and expression and provides legal protection for journalists in the Gaza Strip. I'm enrolled in a 3-month training program, but still, it didn't feel right. Once again, I couldn't tolerate just sitting there behind a desk, editing news behind the scenes. I tried for 3 months, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. There was more in me, and I thought the work was slowly killing whatever hidden talents I might possess. So eventually, I went to the director of Press House, Bilal Jadallah, with an idea. Bilal Jadallah was known as the godfather of journalism in the Gaza Strip. He had served as the director of media and international news relations for the Palestinian National Authority in his early 20s, then as the head of the Palestinian Independent Center for Media Service from 2006 to 2013. His experience in the field was truly one of a kind, and he had a reputation for taking people under his wing when he saw any kind of potential in them. When I started at Press House, I quickly realized that people were right about him. Bilal was an incredible guy, so open and approachable. When I recommended to him that Press House should have a social media team, he listened. I pitched all the ideas I had in mind, and he immediately looked excited. From then on, myself and a colleague, Hatem Rawah, were given the responsibility for the initiative. The result of our work were outstanding. Our engagement was off the chart, with our follower count increasing sharply and multiple Instagram reels reaching 1 million views. I was having a lot of fun and felt like I was finally making a difference. That feeling only increased shortly after when I took charge of the English Media Club, which involved running workshops for different groups within Press House. I had people attending them who were years and years older than me, yet they were interested. They enjoyed my teaching methods, and they came for the whole 5-month period. In my free time, I used to shadow my old teachers, Rawan Al-Sorani, while she was filming and interviewing people in the studio or the street. Since I was no longer her student, she started revealing some secrets. One day, she confessed that she'd never particularly enjoyed teaching, and that her ambition was to work as a full-time journalist and reporter in the field. The international media outlets were only interested in covering news about Gaza during an Israel aggression, she said, making it hard to work as a journalist full-time. It would seem that the eyes and ears of the world aren't interested in Palestinian life, only in Palestinian death. That made me feel frustrated, mad even. Why should the world only know about us when there are bombings? I wanted and still want the world to learn about our lives, not only our deaths. I hate that when you Google Gaza, all you get are pictures of destruction. I think ultimately that's what made me leave Press House. It's not that I wasn't enjoying the work, it's that I knew there was more for me to do, to show the world my home as I knew it, and I needed more life experiences, different life experiences to do that. So after a few months, I took a job in HR at an agency called Step Up, just to try a new challenge. It turns out conducting interviews is absolutely my cup of tea. I love it. Finally, 9 months post-graduation, I started to feel like I was figuring my life out. I began to have a social life again. And I was tutoring a 5th grader named Lynn almost every day. I did this for months and it never felt like a job, more like I was hanging out with my little sister. Back then, a day in my life consisted of waking up early, which I hate, I'm not a morning person, then heading to work before visiting my mom at her school. Then I'd go to tutor Lynn, which was honestly fun. She would tell me stories more useful than her studies. After that, I would get home, eat and shower, then sometimes take a nap, or go to Q Cafe with my friends. Nights saw me drinking tea with my mom in front of the TV. Weekends began on Thursday evening at a restaurant called Roots with Dana. Since I returned from Cyprus, it had become a bit of a tradition, and just getting to our table meant half an hour of greeting everyone we knew. Fridays were cherished family days, spent enjoying breakfast or lunch together, and sometimes venturing out at night. Saturdays brought my comedic highlight of the week, playing tennis with my friend Yara and sister Judy. Our skills were so laughable that the tennis teacher often cancelled our lessons, convinced we were beyond help. But for us, the joy was in the camaraderie and laughter of it all, not in mastering the game. You don't have to be an expert at something to enjoy it, as long as you're with the right people. I love the version of myself I am in Gaza far more than the version of me that was in Cyprus. Back home, I feel like I have a purpose, a sense of community. Outside of Gaza, I feel like an average person living an unremarkable life. At home, I come alive. There was only one thing missing at this time. I hadn't achieved my wish to show the world Gaza through my eyes. But I reasoned that Gaza wasn't going anywhere. I thought I had all the time in the world. Little did I know. For now, I was an ambitious recent graduate, living as normal a life at home as possible while always under the threat of constant siege. That is, until 7 October 2023. October 2023, Day 1, Saturday, 7 October. I'm still half asleep when I wake up to a flurry of messages on my phone. Friends, group chats, the company I work at. I skim through messages, barely paying attention, with my eyes still blurry from sleep. Nothing really catches my attention. There's mention of a bombing, but that's not unusual in the Gaza Strip. And so, with little strength or motivation to stay awake, I go back to sleep. When I woke up later that day, my phone is still blowing up with notifications. This time I check online. Israel-Palestine escalation updates, Gaza under bombardment, Al Jazeera. People are fearful of what's to come. Gaza civilians flee waves of Israeli strikes, The Guardian. More than 250 bodies found at site of Israel Supernova Festival, rescuers, BBC News. BBC News. What a joke. Palestinian fighters have executed a raid on Israel near the Gaza Strip, killing over 1,000 people and taking a couple of hundreds more hostages. Palestine has been occupied by Israel for almost 75 years. Palestinians have been raided, killed, and taken hostage by the IOF every month for 900 months. This is the first time the opposite has happened. I'm shocked and I don't know how to feel. I'm conflicted. History didn't start today. I leave my room and go to talk to my mom, but she's on the phone with the delivery guy, giving him an endless grocery list. At that moment, I understand how serious the situation is. I'm for Israeli aggression old, so I'm familiar with what the sleep taken during an emergency situation look like. 1. You start stocking your house with bread, flour, and lots of groceries. 2. You open the windows a little bit so that they won't break from the pressure released by bombs and airstrikes. 3. You prepare a small bag that has the passport and all the important documents and you put it near the door, so if you have to evacuate, you just grab it and run. before, you move mattresses to a part of house that doesn't have windows and you sleep there. It's around 11 a.m. and I look from the window towards Arayahin Market across the city. It's a landmark in my neighborhood where everyone goes to shop, the kind of place where you can always buy on credit because the shopkeeper has known you all your life. Now all I can see are neighbors rushing in and out with bags full of groceries, not stopping to chat to anyone. I can tell that emergency mode has been initiated in every house. My phone rings. It's my colleague asking if he can share my number with the journalist, Muhammad Abu Safiyeh. I agree. Muhammad called me later that day and asked me to send him a minute-long video in English reporting on what's happening. He tells me it's a chance to work with a British television channel. I agree and immediately sit down to write a report. I asked my sister Judy to film me on the balcony of my teta's or grandmother's house next door. We start filming, my teta screaming in the background. "Come back in the house, it's dangerous out there." But we ignore her, "Sorry teta," and shoot the video regardless. I send it to Muhammad and he tells me that the news channel wants me live on air for 5 minutes tomorrow morning. Without thinking twice about it, I tell him yes. I'm excited that I'll get a chance to have my voice heard as a Palestinian. It's rare that we get a platform to talk about our own home. Usually, others speak on our behalf. I text my neighbor and lifelong friend Dana to come over to share the news with her. My mom makes tea for everyone, her love language I believe. And then we all just sit together in the living room, watching the news on the TV, and chatting about our feelings and expectations. Mama tells us that she woke up to the sound of bombs and thought it was rain, so she got up to bring the laundry inside and went back to sleep. I think that's hilarious. I immediately text my friend to tell them my mom thought it was raining, and many of them reply, "Yeah, same here," which both surprised me and doesn't at the same time. How much drama does it take to start thinking that bombs are like rain? And how much drama does it take to consider that funny? While discussing today's news, which is an activity that is happening in almost every household around us, Mama tells us that she fears history is repeating itself. In 1948, during the first Arab-Israeli war, Palestinians fled their homes and left their whole life behind, with only a glimmer of hope that they would return one day. My grandparents were there and have told me stories about Al-Nakba, the ethnic cleansing and enforced displacement of Palestinians since I was a little child. When I share the same stories with my grandkids, I hope it will be in the presence of a free Palestine. The chatter about Al-Nakba brings to my mind the previous aggression on Gaza a few years ago. In 2021, I was a university student studying in northern Cyprus, and I hadn't seen my family and homeland in 18 months. I decided to go home to Gaza, taking advantage of the fact that the world was locked down and I was studying online. As a result, I wasn't worried about missing the semester should the Rafah or Erez border close. I remember the 1-hour drive from the border at Rafah to my house, and how the whole time I was just looking out the window at my Gaza, squinting my eyes in the dark for total electric blackout. I could make up the names of new restaurants and cafes that had managed to open. I remember I kept thinking about what I wanted to do the next day. I had friends that I wanted to see and new places to visit. The list of activities I had planned was overwhelming. I woke up the next day to an aggression on the Gaza Strip. The Israeli had attacked in response to peaceful protests by Palestinians in East Jerusalem. My reaction? I was glad I was with Gaza and that she was not alone. The comfort of being together with family and friends during such difficult times outweighed the fear and uncertainty that hung heavy in the air. In a peculiar way, being present to witness the aggression firsthand made it feel more bearable than enduring it from a distance. Who would choose to stay in a dangerous area riddled with violence and pain and aggression over being in safety in Famagusta, far from harm? I'll tell you who. A Palestinian who wants to stay in her homeland. What we really fear isn't Israeli aggressions. It's having to forcibly leave our homes one day And personally, I've always feared losing my family members while separated from them. If we are to die, then it is better for us to die together. My Facebook post from that time tells that story. Instead of celebrating the last day of the holy month with family gatherings, Eid preparations and prayers, we're under an insane attack. Buildings with 50 plus families living in them are being bombed. And for what? Everyone is asking everybody to stay safe and to take care. But how does one do that? My family and friends outside of Gaza text me to check up on me and ask if I'm living in a safe area or if I can hear the sounds around me. All I'd like to say is that no place is safe, no sound is far away, and the bombs are literally everywhere. The house is literally shaking all the time and it leaves me shaking. I know how hopeless and powerless you might feel at such times, but please know that at least sharing what is happening and trying to educate others around you, raising awareness is in itself a great power. Keep us in your prayers. A couple of hours later, I posted a picture of the key of return. It is a symbol of the Palestinian refugees' right to return to their homes, as many Palestinians kept their keys when they were forced into exile in 1948. Alongside this, I posted a picture of Miriam's key to her house that the IOF had bombed, and I wrote, "In 1948, Palestinians left their homes, their houses, their memories, and their whole lives behind them, thinking they'd come back to them in only a matter of days. And now in 2021, the same scenario is happening again. The only difference is that now we have cameras and social media to share and post about what's happening. The second picture is the key to my friend's house that no longer exists. We Palestinians all have keys to houses that no longer exist. Yet the hope of us returning back to our homeland, Palestine, of having all our land back, never fades away." And that's the photo of the key. It's one of the symbols of the Nakba. A few days after that, last night was one of the worst nights in my life. Buildings and houses and the people inside and alongside them were demolished, and the streets leading to hospitals were bombed. Israelis have no goals and no targets left. They're literally bombing randomly everywhere. And no, it doesn't get any better, and the terror of airplanes and sweeping of bombs have become the soundtrack of our lives. And we're feeling stressed and anxious, and we're just waiting. For what? For our turns? In such times, it's a fantasy to make it out alive. Little did I know what was to come. You know what always inspires me? The spirit of Palestinians. After every loss, you only find us stronger and trying even harder to live and love life. In 2021, I thought I was experiencing the worst days of my life. Buildings and houses were being bombed by the IOF. Even the streets were being bombed, making it harder for paramedics to reach injured people. Yet once the aggression was over, there was a community initiative to clean the street of Gaza. I immediately took up a broom and joined in. Only a few weeks later, Gaza streets were full with Palestinians arriving to live despite the harsh reality that surrounded us. As Mahmoud Darwish, maybe the most famous Palestinian poet in history, said, "We love life if we find a way to it." I remember going out with my friends to the Bellini Cafe and restaurant inside Capital Mall. We were sitting at our favorite table by the window. To my left, my friends were eating delicious food, music, and the voices of people were in the background, and Bellini was crowded with Palestinians determined to live. To my right, outside the window, I could see a demolished building that had housed several warm apartments and shops. And you know what was in the front of that demolished building? Business owners who had lost their stores, selling whatever they could save from under the rubble. You may perceive Gaza as a desperate place, and yes, there is death and there is destruction, and it's not fair, and we know that there's a better world out there. But that's not what I see. When I look at her, I see only the unity and resilience of her people. While many have been displaced and lost their lives, we remain determined to live on, and we refuse to let the losses we suffer dictate our future. In Gaza, you'll find mothers of martyrs celebrating the sacrifice of their children. Does this mean that they're pleased that Israel killed their children? No. But are they proud that their children gave their lives for Palestine? Yes. It's an act of giving meaning to the worst loss. It's an act of giving meaning to the worst loss a person can possibly endure. We don't celebrate that, but that is all around us, and we need a way to convert it back into life. Those parents didn't choose this. Their kids aren't soldiers who choose to die. They're kids. So when a kid is murdered by the occupation, sometimes the only way to make sense of that loss is as part of the price tag of Palestinian freedom, and freedom from the entity that's doing all the actual killing in the first place. My family continues to speak anxiously, but eventually, the conversation dies down and there's nothing to do but sleep. To wrap up day, we complete step 1, 2 and 3 of emergency preparedness, but not 4. We're too lazy to bring our mattresses to the living room and sleep there. So we also sleep in our own rooms, but we make sure the windows are open. Yeah, that's the opening and the first chapter of The Eyes of Gaza. I've read further. I'm up until, as I mentioned, page 46, and this book have around maybe just around 204, but a lot of it is just pictures and poems, and the font of the book is really big, so it's not that hard of a read. And it is a very sad story, because obviously, but it's also very funny. You'll be surprised at how much humor is put into the writing of this book. It's something that I think you should read. It's not the best political knowledge of what is happening there, but it is a personal story that is much needed under the many attempts at silencing them, and also at trying to put losses in Gaza as only just numbers. That's why the other book I have read about this is We Are Not Numbers, because they have a life, they have dreams, they have fear, they have hope. A lot of them are in pain, and a lot of them are trying to overcome that pain, the trauma that they still live under. That's why it's written as a diary of resilience. I highly recommend this. So I'm going to continue reading that after I end the stream. It's a short stream today, and it's just me reading books. I don't know what that looks like on the other end, but hopefully someone enjoyed that. Thank you guys for watching. Read the book.